balancing the upcoming updates.
Balancing and patch. Let's go.
Every
Patch
single
notes.
time.
Oh, I know that, and that's great. And,
I have my
you're-
legions of fans.
We love JC.
You know, everything. It's great. You know.
I
We're
know
not
everybody. We love
worthy.
that you're all out here, so that's great.
We're not worthy.
Everybody, I'm like,
Do they? They stop
I'm
down
a
the
real
street?
celebrity now.
They ask you for balance on the street.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Yep.
hey, please fix this.
Can I get your
and
can I get
all
the
this-
balance?
And you do it.
And I say yes to everybody. But
You say yes to everybody. That's right. Like, absolutely, that's not how it works. Please don't. Please don't assume that's how it works.
Yeah.
But we do have quite a few notes to talk about
Yes.
today. Some really cool stuff. So let's dive into it, JC.
let's dive into it, right? So, patch notes.
Let me know
again,
all your
30th
hot
season,
takes
Amazing.
in the
That's
comments.
Something we haven't done in a little while,
Oh.
which is feet balancing.
Oh shoot.
Whoa.
Oh, just to give a bit of a heads up, you might have noticed that we didn't talk about testing grounds
I did notice, yes.
in the schedule, right?
No testing
The
grounds.
reason for that is because we were actually going to put a bunch of, like, all we're going to be talking about for feed balancing specifically into a testing ground. But then as we were working on it,
Oh.
we decided, well, you know what? We can actually just push this live and do it now instead of going to a testing ground. We were very, very confident with these changes for those. So
Yo,
we're like,
feats!
we're going to do it now. And then instead of, like, testing ground and pushing it in 3 months.
Feats.
This is why there's no testing ground this season. We wanted to make sure that, you know, stuff could get pushed right now. That would be good.
Nice.
Feats.
So let's go over it. So for tier 1 feats that we're
Let's
looking at, right, so
go!
first we have Ki. It deals 80 stamina damage. It used to just deal like 120 or something. It was always it was guaranteed to put you out of stamina every single time, right?
Yeah.
So at 80, what it does is at least you have to think a little bit more
Mm.
when you're gonna use it. I paid the price in a play session we did earlier this week, where I put it and I forgot that we had did that balancing change, and then oops, somebody wasn't out of stamina, and I kind of wasted my feet. It's not a total waste, but it's still, you know, it's not as useful. So really, the idea here is we want to make sure that people are thinking about it a little bit more for when they're going to trigger it. Then we have Sinister Shield, so Blackbriar is tier 1. So it's been overperforming a bit. Blackbriar is very, very strong. His feats are extremely strong. And in this case, we want to rebalance it a little bit so that first you have to sacrifice a bit more health to give the shield. The shield, the amount that you give is the same, but Blackbriar has to pay a bit more of a cost. Right? It's easy to heal with BP. Don't have to worry too much about it. So with this, like, it just, again, it's a bit more of a price to pay. And we also lowered the duration of the shield by 2 seconds. So that's 8 instead of 10. So again, like, lowering it a little bit so that there's a bit more risk to using it. There's a little bit less reward as well. But it's still a very good feat.
Yeah.
Shields are good. There's a lot
I mean, it is a
of
pretty strong tier 1.
Next we have Gravity Pull, which is Afeera's tier 1. So 2 big changes to it. First, it deals 15
This is
damage
Afeera.
instead of 20. And we've also increased the cooldown to 90 seconds. It used to be 60, right? So Afeera is overperforming. Again, we've been talking about it a little bit.
She's strong.
Her feats are a big portion as to why she's a bit too strong right now. So by changing that feat, it's very useful, right? From neutral, you do stuff. You can do it for out of stamina, from a lot of different things. So it's very, very useful. It's hard to react to for a lot of players. It guarantees gank setups and stuff. So by lowering the cooldown, one of the big things that it does is that normally at 60 seconds, it's one of our metrics. Typically, you get into a fight every minute-ish when you're playing, right? Unless you're camping a point and you're just saying, you know, whatever.
Hopefully, you can hear him better. I'll
I've
turn him up.
every minute-ish. So that feat was available pretty much every single fight. At 90 seconds, it's every fight and a half.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, you have to think a little bit more when you're going to be using it. You still unlock it really early.
Right.
You're still going to use it quite a bit. But there's going to be that downside there of you have to think about more when you're going to be using it. And the damage being lowered also kind of impacts a lot of the ganking potential and the damage potential out of that feat. So again, like a nice little change there, a bit of a nerf, but it's good. Finally, we have Take Shelter, which is Varangian's tier 1. I'm saying that right, I think.
You did, yeah.
Awesome. I kept messing it up.
I don't know if that's the
yeah, right. So her
the
first
perk,
feat,
but
it
I'm
was
not sure.
Healing for 10 every time you super your block. We're lowering it to 5. It's a change that we were potentially going to do for launch. We were a bit concerned with the power level of the feat. The feat is pretty good. Right? Varangian
It's really good.
Varangian,
This is Varg.
good position.
Vargarian.
Really, like a very strong hero.
Yeah.
But feats are like that feat specifically
Varangian.
too strong. So putting it down to 5 should be a bit more equal to. It still heals more than a lot of healing feats. It has more healing potential than a lot of feats have throughout an entire game. But at 5, at least it's cut in half, so it's still going to be good. It still cleanses, so that effect is still there.
Varg
Very
Simpson.
good. We actually need to cleanse when we heal for the moment because otherwise they have potential issues with bleeding and so all sorts of things that it kind of messes with the UI quite a bit. So we want to make sure that this stays there. That's good and it works well.
Nice.
Let's look at
That's
tier 2
really
feats.
powerful.
We have
Yeah,
one
any
change
superior
here to
blocks. That
Juggernaut.
also means crushing
So
counters,
Juggernaut is like I remember
not just full block.
reading on some discords and a lot of stuff that well,
Aha,
Juggernaut
there it
exists,
is.
so it doesn't matter.
Juggernaut,
So we're
these-
nerfing
yeah.
Juggernaut. So two things, right? The damage reduction is now 20% instead of 50, and we increase the cooldown to 120 seconds, up from 90. The big thing here is that like Juggernaut, basically, usually we would just pop it. We wanted to keep the armor on it, by the way. Right? When you pop Juggernaut, you get like full armor the whole time when you're attacking. So you're very, very hard
so you
to
have full
punish.
super armor.
But the big thing here is by lowering the damage reduction, you take a lot less favorable trades, right? It's still 20%. You're still generally favorable, but less favorable than 50%. If I'm gonna throw a heavy at you, you're not gonna take 12, right? You're gonna take much more. So that makes a big difference there, and also making the cooldown a bit longer. Make sure that you have to think a bit more when you're gonna pop it. So that makes the thing.
Yeah.
One thing here that looks like it's probably missing, because I know a lot of people in chat are probably going, "What about Shinobi? What about shooting stars?"
Shooting stars.
And I just want to bring up shooting stars very, very, very quickly because we're aware that the feat has an issue with hitting the same target multiple times. It is not the easiest thing to land, and we debated a lot internally as to do we take shooting stars, nerf it to the ground, and make it do 5 damage, and feel extremely bad in most situations, like 95% of situations, to account for the edge case that occurs once in a while where it's gonna hit multiple times for the same person. And we decided to keep it as is for now because we're looking at reworking the feat entirely so that the issue just cannot happen anymore.
Okay, there you
but
go.
That's not coming right now.
Good.
So I wanted to make sure I address it. We're not ignoring it. We know it's a problem. We are going to fix it. We're going to change it.
Good.
But for now, we made the decision not to kill it just because we tried it at 5 damage. And it's like you throw it, and most of the times you don't even see your opponent's health bar move, right? And so even as a tier 2, that felt really, really, really bad. So we wanted to make sure that it was still, usable when you're playing matchmaking. We know the feat is banned in competitive anyway, so it wouldn't have much of an impact there. It might have gotten unbanned, but then it wouldn't have felt good anyway. So that's kind of the idea here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It happens a lot
shooting
more
stars.
frequently than a lot of people realize,
Next,
but
tier 3
I
feats,
see where they're
you're
coming
gonna be
from.
happy. I'm sure the chat is going nuts over the last one, but we'll go
Or
over
rather,
it.
and I see where they're coming from.
First, Afeera again, Speeding Comet or Unique Tier 3.
Yeah.
So we've lowered the damage by 10. So you used to deal 30, now it deals 20. And the cooldown is now also 120 seconds, up from 90. Speeding Comet is very, very strong. It guarantees a heavy afterwards, guarantees a wall spot if there's a wall nearby. You have a lot of damage output, a lot of ganking potential. You have full block while you're running. It's an extremely good feat, right?
It's really good.
We're
an
taking
option
a first
select.
step here by lowering its damage by 10.
Effectively.
If it needs to be nerfed further, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see if we can
Yeah,
nerf it
shooting
more.
stars getting
Same
nerfed
for the
or
cooldown,
getting
right? It went from
reworked is
90
a big
seconds to
W.
120. You won't be able to use it as often. Normally, when you
As
get
well.
to tier 3 feat, if it's a 2-minute cooldown, you can expect to use it maybe twice, like maybe 3 times in a game, right? Like generally. So it won't be as prevalent as it was, hopefully. And then the total effect of it is also a bit lower. Right? Lowering it by 10 damage, it makes a difference. It's not a huge difference, but it's enough that it impacts the feat quite a bit.
Yeah.
Next we have Pugio. So Pugio was doing a bit too much damage on top of everything else it does. Guarantees a fully charged heavy, guarantees a bunch of different things. So with this, lowering it to 15 instead of 25, again, 10 less damage, makes the feat, it feels less bad when you get hit.
Waiting
by
to see
it,
what
and
else
then
they're
you
going to do
get,
with projectiles.
not save, but like you get eliminated and pushed down to death like really, really easily. So we wanted to really change that. We have Fury.
The
as
nerfing
well.
the damage on
Fury
that
is
doesn't change the issue with the pin.
infamous
That's true.
Fury flask combo or
Yes.
Fury whatever combo.
But it still
very, very strong. So we
addresses the
decided to nerf
off-screen
both aspects
potential of
of
damage.
Fury. So the damage buff is now 20 and a damage reduction buff is 20 as well. So the combination
keep everything
of
else.
Fury and Fire Flask is going to deal less damage. And then the damage
Good
reduction
nerf.
you get from Fury as well, it should be a little bit lower. So it's
Good
a
overall.
bit more in line with other buffs that we have.
Don't think we
that
can
do, like,
complain.
multiple effects. It's still strong, but you're not gonna. It's gonna be hard to one-shot people when you have Fury active.
That said, I analyzing this later, I may have a different
Shaolin's,
opinion.
Unique tier 3 feat. So again, Invigorate kind of is in a weird spot where Shaolin for a long time was not like the best hero. We've buffed Shaolin, is now much more playable, which is amazing. But at the same time, Invigorate was a bit of a problem, right?
Yeah,
It heals for
Invigorate's
8
massive.
and cleanses
Cleanses.
everybody whenever you throw an attack in key stance. No matter if it's blocked, if it's parried,
I think
it hits, if it misses, you're always
bashes
healing
also
it
count.
constantly. And so before it wasn't as much of an issue because it was a lot more difficult to get into key stance and to stay into key stance. But with the flow changes we've been doing to Shaolin, like in the past year or so, the hero is much stronger. And so because of this, you're going to key stance a lot more often.
Oathbreaker.
And healing at 8 is a bit too strong, right? Compared to Varangian, that heals for 5 now, and every superior block, and those happen super often. At 4 here, this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to like really lower the efficiency by half. So it still cleanses. You can still get a lot of healing off of it.
Jesus,
just
this is
not
great.
as much as you.
Feat changes.
Okay.
Feat nerfs.
Finally, Oathbreaker.
Finally.
So Oathbreaker is fun breaker, basically a lot
Yep.
of the time, right?
No longer prevents target gaining shields, so it only removes shields. Let's go.
Right? So the original intent
Yes.
for Oathbreaker was to effectively counter revenge shields, right? That was the main issue and the main design goal for Oathbreaker. But when we initially designed it, Noel was one of our like amazing designers who was working on Black Prayer at the time. We tried it to just remove strip shields, and it didn't feel that good because you're like, oh, you have to time it a lot, and then somebody pops revenge.
Well, that's the
whatever.
skill. That's
So
the
we
skill
decided to
ceiling
go,
kind of
you
deal.
can
You know
pop
what
it
I'm
a little
saying?
bit earlier to prevent
It's a
shields
skill issue.
from applying. Turns out long term, it's better if you just strip shields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
It took a while. We decided, we were talking about it for quite a while. How are we gonna adjust this? And there
This
was
is
like
good.
really 2 ways of going about it, right? Either
This
we
is really
strip
good.
shields or we prevent shields from being applied. And we decided to keep the shield stripping overall. So now for Oathbreaker, like what the line actually says, is you can no longer prevent target from gaining shields.
Gotcha.
So again, before Oathbreaker, the way it works is I see you. I see you got your revenge. You haven't popped it yet. I'm gonna do Oathbreaker on you, and you can't.
Which that's an issue within itself.
You're
A
not
whole
getting
revenge
at
holding.
all. It removes a lot of the decision and a lot of the timing with the feat when you prevent the shield activation from happening. So instead, what it does now is I have to wait until you pop revenge for me to pop it. You can bait revenge activation. There's a lot of stuff you can do as a player to kind of counter. There's a bit more counterplay to Oathbreaker than it was before. That should make a big difference there. And also, right now we have a known issue that we're still looking into, like if we're gonna keep it as is, which is that normally when we do our feats, we check for is the feat going to do something, right? So in this case, you can still trigger the feat if the person you're locked onto does not have shields. So meaning you can waste the feat. We're gonna look into, do we keep it this way? Do we put back the condition? But we wanted to change Oathbreaker at this moment specifically because it's been overperforming. A lot of complaints about it. I completely understand.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like we're addressing it and going in that way. We're gonna keep an eye on it as well, and see if we need to do like more to it as we go along.
Makes sense.
Finally, tier 4 feats.
They didn't adjust the projectiles from tier 3.
Viking unique feat. That
Noted.
deals. So the way Fire Flask works is that when you throw, it's kind of like catapult, right? There's a middle, and then there's like it kind of expands. And the damage from the middle started at 50 and it expanded all the way, I think, to 20. So we've lowered the maximum damage to 30, and it expands to the same value, which I think is 20, but it might be 10. I'm sorry, I can forget things sometimes. Getting old.
He's got a lot to remember.
But basically,
That's fair.
Because of this,
I think he's
first
right
of all, the initial
on 20, I
impact
think
of
that's
Fire
right.
Flask is going to deal less damage, almost regardless, because the curve still stays the same. So if it was at 50 and it drops off to 20, then the closer you are to the middle, the more damage you would take. You would take like closer to 50. Now you're going to take closer to 30.
Maybe it is
which
10.
is much
I don't
more
know.
story. It's like 20 less.
I can't remember
so
either.
the initial impact plus the nerf to Fury means that Fury Flask should give players more
36
time
damage.
to be able to run out of the fire, go heal, go cleanse, and lower the efficiency of that specific feat combo. But even if we weren't going to nerf Fury, Fire Flask still needed to be nerfed there a little bit. That's kind of where we're going.
Yeah, so 20% on
right?
bonus
so
on Fury
Storm.
means
It wasn't
36
that much of
damage
an
on
issue
Flask.
before, because Highlander was not necessarily very competitive. With the recent rework, there's been a big uptick with Highlander. There's still some issues that we're looking to fix in terms of like input comfort.
30 damage per wave instead of 70. Good.
But overall, the hero was much stronger, and so we had to nerf Spear Storm, right? Spear Storm, when it was dealing 70 per wave, could
has massive
effectively
stun
one-shot
too. That's the
pretty
issue
much
with it.
everybody, right? If you get hit by the first one, the other 2 are more or less guaranteed.
Exactly.
And you would take like 70 plus 70 plus 70, you'd be dead. No matter if you have like a bunch of perks and feats and whatever. So we're lowering it to 30. It's a massive, massive decrease, but the total max damage you can deal with this is going to be 90, a bit more if you have Fury.
Yep.
But outside of this, like this is a big change for Highlander. This needed to happen because that feat was just, you're dead. And there's nothing you can really do about it. On top of it being hard to hear from external, it comes in pretty quickly. It's like, it's, because there's other heroes that have feats that do almost instant kills or whatever.
Yeah.
But the difference is that they're usually a lot more reactable. We wanna have like those feats that if you're gonna be able to deal a massive amount of damage, if the reward is gonna be huge, you need to be able to really time them properly. With this, it was a lot easier to just throw it and nobody saw you and you're dead, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big idea here. Nerfing Spear Storm, so that goes. And finally, we have Fear itself.
Fear itself, nerfed to 40% instead of 50. Okay.
40% down from 50. So it's a
it's still gonna be one of the strongest feats out there now.
A bunch of other feats ends up being like a little bit too strong. I don't know if you remember the unholy days of Peacekeeper having sharpened blades and Fear itself and just going, hey, I'm gonna bleed you for your entire life in one shot.
I mean,
that was fun.
They were fun for a while.
Yeah, for a little while,
for
right?
A little while.
When PK was like top tier. So by lowering that a little bit, it lowers the effectiveness of that feat. Not by a massive amount. We're gonna keep an eye on it again to see where that goes.
I suspect they had more plans about this before it actually went live than just that, Ludix.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree that we can push all of these live. We don't need to do a testing round for this.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
That's just something everybody can just quickly understand.
Right, and then we go into a little bit more of a hero balance.
Look, Highlander's more viable now. NERFS Spear Storm.
Hero changes, right? So Berserker's been overperforming.
People
very
get
strong hero. We know that there's
Spin chop is no longer enhanced. Oh, I believe that's his side dodge light.
We're lowering his HP down to 125 from 130. Reason being
that's
that like, with the new dodge cancel, all that stuff that Berserker has now, there's less need.
Also
for
applies to externals. Nice.
It's still part of its identity.
Yep.
You still have armor and a couple of things.
Side dodge light.
So that's why the HP.
I don't know why I remember that, but I do.
For example.
I used to main Zerk back in the day.
You need to trade less, and so we're comfortable with lowering his health a little bit to make sure that works. The second change, though, is much more important. It's a test that we're doing on Berserker. If it ends up working, we're going to look at it. But we're aware there's an issue with dodge attacks and 2 dodge cancels, right? I've been seeing a lot of players like talking about like they're problematic. Part of the issue is that because they're enhanced, you can never really stop them. So if I'm playing Berserker, I can use them offensively, do a side dodge, target swap, do the attack, and then I'm gonna be abusing my trajectories, my weapon hitboxes, hit people that can't parry me, that can only block me, and so you can use it really offensively, which is not the actual purpose that we want to give for these attacks, right? So what we did is it's no longer enhanced, including on external targets. So what that means is if I'm locked on to Max, who's sitting over there, right? And then I side dodge, switch target to you, and do the attack. If Max blocks spin chop, I'm going to bounce off of him, and it's not even going to reach you. So the idea here is we want to make sure that if somebody blocks it, if somebody is able to stop it in any way, it will stop the attack entirely. Like I said, it's a test we're doing. If it's effective, it's going to work. If it doesn't work, if it ends up being like too frustrating or whatever, it doesn't end up doing what we'd like it to do, we'll look at it again and see how we can change things. But that is one of the big things that we want to look at here is to try to figure out a way to not remove the dodge cancel at the end. We like the dodge cancel part. It's interesting and also feels like a lot more cohesive, right? If you say this hero can dodge cancel every attack, having exceptions, while it might seem like, oh yeah, it's an exception, it's okay, it adds a burden of knowledge and it makes the hero like less cohesive. So we wanted to make sure that it's a lot more understandable. It makes more sense. It follows the rules. So we'll see where that ends up. It might not be correct. It might be correct. I honestly do not know. We've tested it. We've been debating it quite a bit internally. We'll have to see. But we wanted to try to push a change at least to see if that was a step in the right direction without doing a testing ground.
Yeah, I think it's going to make them feel worse to players.
So again, it's a test, but it should
of Zerk.
Okay. Next we have Shinobi.
But to others, it may feel it's a quality of life. I think a little bit.
Every single superior block attack, like every attack that can superior block, we can no longer backstep them. Shinobi had that issue, even though he doesn't have superior block on backstep lights.
I'll have a deeper opinion later.
To counter, to poke, to do a lot of defensive maneuvers that we didn't want that to happen. Not to mention you could backstep light into sickle rain, into a bunch of different things. Sorry. Allergies, my throat is a bit rough these days, but it's okay. So we've removed the ability to backstep those neutral lights, so that Shinobi has to be a bit more on the offensive here.
Yeah.
The next change is Ghoul's Embrace, which
See
is
if they nerf Pirate.
ranged heavy attack after kicks. It now deals 30 revenge, up from 14, which is a damage it deals. So we know a part of the problem with Shinobi is that there's a lot of ganks that you can do that kind of reset the hit stun constantly and go into it. We've gone over it in the testing rounds that we've had a while ago. We're still investigating like how to finish that testing rounds and like how to apply the tech. Seems to have been pretty promising, but there's still a lot of work to do, so it's taking a bit of time. So in the meantime, we sort of have to do these little patches here and there to make sure that to lower the effectiveness of those ganks. This is why that deals 30 instead of 14. We've looked at increasing the revenge amount on like a bunch of other parts of his kit, and the only one that actually made sense was this one, so this is where we applied it there.
Nice.
Again, we're going to keep a look on
so after the bash, do the heavy.
And see if we need to readjust further.
If that's right, Ludix, then...
Next we have Hito, so one change, but a major one. So charge Mangetsu and charge Endless Myriad.
We'll see how it works out.
Just as charge heavies. They now deal 30 damage instead of 34. So initially, they used to deal 34 because they're super slow, very, very long wind-up. Takes a while to get there. But then over time, as Hito has picked up at the higher levels, we've noticed that like they're very, very used in gank situations to guarantee a ton of damage, like later in ganks and stuff. So with this, we decided to like still leave it high, right? 30 is still kind of like we're trying to hit that as our like damage cap ish. There's still some stuff that goes above, but we're trying not to go too much above it. So at 30, it still deals a significant amount of damage, but still not 34. It might seem like it's only 4, but when you factor in damage reduction from a bunch of different things, it hits it quite a bit more.
Gotcha.
So it makes a bit of a difference here. Should be a bit less effective when you're trying to gank with the Hito.
Reading a live comment here. Reading the chat for Honor's stream shows how many bad takes regular players have.
Bug fix, but it's also like a balancing fix. So normally, just to give a bit of context here, when you have heroes that can dodge, every hero can dodge, right? But when you dodge with a hero, right?
Kill me, Smalls.
We have a little something we said in the data that says you bump minions that are around you to make sure you can actually dodge when you're in minions and make them move out of the way. And so there was a bit of a bug that was,
and I mean that unironically.
Afeera, that also let her bump players as well. And this causes issues where there's like some weird tech you can do, but basically Afeera can just astro flip into opponents, bump them, and then guarantee more damage afterwards, which is not what we want to do at all. So we decided so we removed it. This was actually one of the bugs we got in the bug reporter, right? That I get like almost every day. I get somebody I get Sam from one of our teams who messages me, goes, look, we have like this is that issue. Like, you know, how are we going to look at them and all that stuff? Because, you know, they don't, it's not always obvious for everybody. Not everybody's in the fight team and understands that the data is super deep. So they contact me on almost daily basis, and then we talk about them. This is one of the issues that was put in the bug reporter. One thing to note, right, is that the bug reporter is for bugs. It's not for feedback. If you want to give feedback, there's a million other channels to give feedback, right?
Yep.
I'm on Reddit all the time.
They read everything.
The threads on Reddit,
they really do.
A bunch of different things, so that's cool. But if you want to give feedback, you can go on Reddit. You can go on Twitter.
Yeah, go to Reddit. Go to Reddit for that.
Bugs, bug reporter, #1 place, right?
I don't want to read it. Don't send it to me.
So
go to Reddit.
Let's keep going. Centurion.
I'm just kidding.
So
put your hot takes in the comments.
Light follow-up.
I want to read them.
It no longer requires strict timing. We've been removing those as time goes, so you can just like mash it. It's going to come out. A little bit of a quality of life, but still makes a bit of a difference. Then Peacekeeper, we've increased the forward range of your side dodge attacks to be more in line
is the
with other
GB
attacks
smack.
that have that. So it's not a massive increase, but it's enough that, like, normally when you do a side dodge into a heavy with Peacekeeper, like, she barely had any reach forward. So players could be like a little bit too far away and would miss a lot. So this should be a bit more consistent now as to when you're going to be using it. So that's going to be interesting. We're also looking at other buffs for Peacekeeper after what we've done to see, like, to improve her flow a little bit. So that's going to be maybe coming in the future. I don't have a date. But just to make people, just to reassure people, we are looking at Peacekeeper.
Okay.
That's one of the things we have in mind. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to get good stuff coming.
Peacekeeper.
Finally, we have Nuxia.
Getting changes at some point, potentially.
Nuxia. One of them is more of an input comfort thing, but the other one is something that we're going to be talking about on the next slide as well. Is their heavy finishers no longer apply uninterruptible stance on the victim. So basically, if I had landed a heavy finisher on you, and then you kind of it grabs you, it pins you, throws you against somewhere.
Yeah.
During the entire duration, you had armor.
Remember, they hook.
Right.
And so because of this, you could take a bunch of hits,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't go into further damage reduction. It doesn't go into these things because you're not going into a hit reaction. You're just tanking the hits. And so it was a little bit problematic. It wasn't really necessarily needed, so we removed it. And then you will see as we go along, there's a bit more.
You probably
as well.
rarely, if
But
at
we
all,
also
ever
adjusted
experience
the
that, but
input
it's very,
comfort
very
for
potent.
follow-up attacks during heavy finishers. So what this means is when we removed reflex guard, there was a bit more leeway as to when you could land a heavy finisher, do a wall splat, and then like buffer like a top heavy, for example, to make sure you would get your attack going. And the input buffer was a bit bigger because you could change your guard during your recovery. But when we removed this, we removed the ability to remove it, to change it super quickly, and it made the attacks way harder to kind of pull off and to land. So we really extended the buffer window for this. You can throw heavy, you can press heavy way earlier in the recovery, and it will come out at the end on frame 0 to make sure that it's a lot more consistent there.
Very
It's like nice little quality of life change there for Nuxia.
Nice.
Should go well into going further.
There we go.
There it is,
And
the link, folks.
finally-
Friend or foe.
This is the
See if I
last
can
change we're
copy
doing.
that link
We have
address.
removed uninterruptible stance on guard break throw victims. So a bit of history here. About half the cast did it, and the other half of the cast did not.
Right.
And so we've decided to standardize it because it made no sense. It was a weird inconsistency that was based from a long time ago where we tended to put armor on a lot of attacks when if you got hit out of them, the realization of things, right? How the visual outcome of it didn't look super good. So we a lot of the time we would put armor on these to make sure it looked great, right?
Yeah.
Over time, our stance on this has changed because we realized as we evolved playing the game ourselves and watching players play the game, and as we like working on it, it's not really necessary, and we rather take the hit and realization to have better gameplay. Because this what ends up happening is that sometimes if I had a hero I would throw you, my allies could wail on you and nothing would happen. You would
People are
just take
going to
the fight.
interrupt ledges
Some
all
other
the
hero, I
time
would do
now.
the same. You would take a hit, you go into a hit reaction. What's going on here, right?
Players
We're
who
not
have
gonna
no
list 'cause
idea
it's
what
like
you're
half the
doing are going to
cast, it's
screw it
like,
up because they
we're
can't
gonna
stop
be
button
here until
mashing.
Sunday, so
Sure,
whatever.
sure.
But
It's also got to be
really, like,
easier
the
for the
important thing
for
here
the
is we've
for them to
standardized
peel
this so
though.
that if you throw somebody and they get hit before they hit a wall, before anything happens, they're going to go into hit reaction 100% of the time to make sure that these are no longer like weird ganking tools that are kind of like really character specific, but just to make
What a
sure
BS.
like this is super clear, it was not intentionally character specific. I don't want people to come in and think, oh, this was like, you know, something that specifically I did on like this or that hero. It was relics of the past and on how we build heroes, and we wanted to really rationalize it and go look at it and go, okay, this is no longer necessary. We don't want to do it. And this is how it goes. So it's a slight nerf for some heroes, and for the rest of the cast, it doesn't change.
And I think we even challenge you out there, like who knows which heroes had these?
Exactly,
Like,
right? Like you can.
Like I didn't know that.
See, now
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Some people are gonna go and they're gonna.
I know they're gonna
now.
call me out on it. I know.
Uh-huh.
I've been playing the game since launch. I didn't know that.
I know, right? So that's the thing, right? So that's kind of it for balance changes, but like a pretty hefty patch, like a lot of stuff.
That's
happening.
a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, super happy about it. Again, any comments anywhere, you like it, you don't like it,
In the comments
please tell
section,
us.
hot takes.
I'll be happy to read every single comment. It's all good.
Maybe don't always read every comment though.
I
like
shouldn't.
give
He
yourself.
shouldn't, but he
I
does.
Just a
probably,
little bit of a
yeah,
break.
I probably should stop sometimes, but I'm addicted to it.
I know you are.
He
I know you
cares.
are.
It's amazing.
Oh man. All right. Well, and I hope you all appreciate how addicted he is to feedback on this stuff too. All right.
Addicted
and,
to
and again, don't
feedback.
forget
That should
about
be a
Buck
song.
Reporter out there.
And I'm surprised projectiles other than Pugio did not get nerfed. Because those projectiles now being 50 damage, they're now some of the highest damage feats in the game now. Because tier 4s got nerfed, you know, we had Fire Flask and Spear Storm got nerfed from 50 and 70 respectively down to 30. Right? Now you have tier 3s that are 50 damage that are higher than tier 4s, and they can be set up with a guard break. So There's those scenarios that not everybody may realize is an issue or why it's an issue. And also they can get hit off screen with no real setup other than just, you know, having a 1v1 and you're running off screen. The person doesn't see you. They don't know that they're there. They're not anticipating anything. Like, it's damn near impossible to react to that kind of stuff because there's like, it's no real proper indication that something's happening. By the time you know something's happening, it's too late. So yeah, I think considering getting those down to 30 as well might be good. Because I don't think we've seen that yet, right? So there's still 50, if I understand right. Maybe I missed something recently, but I think that's right. They're all still 50. So I think 30, 35 still makes them quite potent and gives them some pressure. If you're in a 1v1 or a 2v2 or whatever it is, you know, somebody's low, you still have that extra pressure from that tier 3 to kind of pressure them into making a mistake. But you know, you still have the balance of it not just being, oh, you're half health, let me delete you real quick. And for free, you'll never even see it coming. Literally.